and welcome to a very special episode, a spoilercast. We're back for a lovely special episode.
Yeah.
What better spoilercast to do than on the latest movie of Dungeons and Dragons Honor Amongst Thieves, directed by Jonathan Goldstein and John Francis Daly. We're back with this, and joining me is our resident barbarian. It's Andy Henry.
Hello.
And and he knows lots of spells and how to use them. It's our resident sorcerer / wizard, maybe. I think maybe Drew Toynbee.
Hello there. Good to be back again. I feel like we're saying good to be back like so many different times. We've recorded 4 episodes before this comes out. But anyway, yeah, good to be back.
And I'm bringing out the rear as the face of the party. Obviously, it's me, Ross. Hello.
Obviously the bard.
Obviously. So yeah, we're here to talk to you guys about the Dungeons and Dragons movie, not to be mistaken for the old Dungeons and Dragons movie, which starred Jeremy Irons, I believe.
Yes, it did.
So yeah,
And
great though. That does deserve a whole review or an actual sequel pitch to that episode. That would be a good one.
So to start off with, what we're going to do is we're going to go through. We're going to do a little spoiler-free review for anyone that hasn't seen it and doesn't really want full spoilers, but just wants to know how we thought it was. And we'll give it a mark out of 5. And then after that, we'll get straight into the meat and veg, the trail rations, the prestidigitation of
the cantrip. No, not the cantrip. The 5th level spell slots. 5th level fireball.
Yeah. So let's go around the room, i.e., this room in Zoom, and see what we thought of this movie. Let's go with Drew first, because he is a big D&D fan, as am I, and as is Andy. But he is a DM. He's also a player. He's done many campaigns. He's played in many games. What did you think of D&D?
I had a really good time. I had such a good laugh with this film. Like, Chris Pine never fails to deliver. It's easy to forget how funny that dude is. And he's a great leading man for this movie. Really good stakes. The fact that there is a major element of the driving force of this movie that hasn't been in any of the trailers, that was a huge surprise, was really, really nice. And I enjoyed that a lot. Michelle Rodriguez did a great job as you think that she's the straight man kind of Drax analog. Yeah. And then actually Reggie John Page shows up and is actually the completely straight-faced straight man who gets some really good laughs out of having no sense of humor. Justice Smith is great, although I've seen a few things saying like he fooled Hugh Grant into thinking he was British, and it's like no, he doesn't. Like, it's great. It's a really good comedy accent, and he does it very well. But come on, Hugh Grant's not being. Maybe Hugh Grant's lived in America for too long. Who knows? Sophia Lillis, like the whole cast, great. Hugh Grant continuing his run of being like an evil old thespian, which he's just cornered the market in. I loved it. It's not. It hasn't changed my world. It's not. It's not going to be the best film of this year, but it might well be one of the most fun.
Yeah. Nice. Andy?
Yeah, I got to agree with Drew. Hell of a fun film. Very very enjoyable. Like the special effects, whether it was actually like the CGI or practical, were really great. There's a scene in the beginning where Prime. Guess I'm watching, it's because I'm watching Transformers, and I thought I was going to call him Chris Prime. Chris Pine is talking to her like a council at the start and stuff, and there's a really good practical creature, you know. So
I think
yeah,
we can say like that's not a spoiler. Oh no, maybe it is. It's kind of
yeah,
It is a
I
spoiler.
don't,
yeah, it is.
So, but like I say, there's a couple of those. The characters, characters were fun. As I say, it was. I'm not the biggest D&D person on the podcast. I played it a couple of times, but you guys are definitely more engrossed in it. I really enjoyed it. It's definitely. I kind of agree with Drew where it's not going to be the best film of the year or my favorite film of the year. But I definitely like when it comes on Netflix and stuff. I'll definitely check it out.
Mm.
My only and I guess it's kind of big, is if you took the for me not being a big Dungeons and Dragons, so kind of I'll ask you guys in the spoiler bit a bit more. If I didn't see the name and I just went into this, I wouldn't have. I just kind of seen it as a standard fantasy. That's the only thing, as kind of playing a bit of D&D. It would have been nice to. I don't know. I haven't come up with the answer, yet.
That was something. Sorry to butt in. That was something that I wanted to ask you guys. I thought might actually be genuinely like useful content for people listening to the spoiler-free bit. As people who are familiar, and in Ross and my case is very familiar with D&D, that familiarity added a great deal of enjoyment for me. And how I've seen a lot of people saying, "Oh, went to see the D&D movie. My wife came with me, and she doesn't know D&D, and she loved it as well." How do you think that it's still accessible for non-D&D fans?
Oh, I say definitely, because I mean I definitely played it, but I don't know D&D too well, so I put myself in the category maybe of don't know of I'm not a D&D fan. Like I think if you went in as a partner of someone who really enjoyed D&D, you'd definitely enjoy it because it's a good fun fantasy. It's light. There's a couple of stakes, but overall they're fine. There's really good characters. Yeah, Hugh Grant is nearly as good as his bad guy was in Paddington 2.
Yeah.
Chris Prime, Prime, shit, fuck's sake.
Chris Prime.
Chris Pine is great. Justice Smith is good. He definitely screams less than he did in Jurassic World, which I was appreciative. His accent is good. His accent, there's a couple of words sometimes where I'm like, there you are. But why? I know you can have like any kind of accent or voice in D&D, but why? Firstly, why not just have a weird?
I wonder if I wonder if it was because they were like, right, every other character in this world has a British accent. And then we've got our 4 leads are all American. And they were like, oh, maybe one of them should be British. And Justice Smith was like, oh, I'll do it. That'll be funny. And there are some moments like the fact that his character has low self-esteem and he gets the kind of sarcastic, oh, brilliant. Like, he nails those. I've heard all of us say exactly that and exactly that intonation. But yeah, I wonder if that's why, because they were just like, everyone else is British, guys. Everyone. And then it's just Americans.
Yeah. I'll give it to Chris Pine as well. Once I realized he was like, obviously the lead, but his character was supposed to be kind of like a devious scamp kind of type. I was a bit like, oh, can he play that? Can he actually play that and stuff? But then I completely forgot about fucking Star Trek and Kirk, and he easily fit into the role and stuff. So yeah, I would say it was I was happy with the whole cast, everything about the film. It was just if you took the name away, yeah, which I don't know if it is good and bad in equal measures, I guess.
I think it was a fun movie, like you guys have said. It's D&D light. It's bringing. I like it because it's bringing D&D into mainstream media, and it's bringing it to the world in terms of like all those people that haven't heard about it, haven't don't know anything about it, it brings eyes to that, and anything that does that for me is great. And I went to see it with one of my mates who doesn't play D&D at all, and he enjoyed it. You know, I agree that for me, it's probably not gonna. It's never gonna. I don't think it's gonna be a historical movie that you'll always remember. You know, in the past, probably. But I think it's one of those movies where you may be with your mates and you might be like, should we put D&D on? And
Yes,
it'll be a fun movie to put on. They nail the party aspect of D&D really well. Like with the casting, you know, you've got the bard who's like, you know, kind of like if anybody that listens has ever listened to Critical Role, you've got like Scanlan, who's also kind of the bard, and they're a bit tongue in cheek, and there's like a bit of a rogue as well. And I think Chris Pine really nails that performance. The other guys are really good as well. They're like, and yes, if you probably took out the names of places, the spells, and anything else, you probably would say, yeah, it's just another generic fantasy movie. But I think, but that's not necessarily a bad thing, you know?
Well, no, because like any kind of modern generic fantasy draws a direct lineage from Tolkien and D&D. That's where it all comes from.
Yeah.
Like it's an interesting thing where in a lot of cases I might feel a bit negative about a big recognizable brand name being slapped on a generic, and I don't I think the only ways in which it feels generic are because it is built on these fundamental building
Epic
blocks of fantasy, of like high fantasy. But actually, I'm really glad that this is a D&D movie because it's enough in the zeitgeist from Stranger Things. Stranger Things making D&D super duper mainstream, or far more mainstream, has made it so that people will go, oh, D&D, oh yeah, that does look interesting. Maybe I'll watch that trailer, and then they'll go, oh, that does look quite fun. And then they will go and see a good, fun, like, family. It's basically a family film. There's no blood. It's just a funny, high fantasy, no blood adventure movie.
And I think that's, and it encapsulates what D&D is about, and that's to have fun. And like, you know, and I think they nail that. I mean, they could have gone the whole route of making it uber serious and uber like, no, this is going to be like, we're going to put all the lore in of Faerun and stuff like that. But they were like, no, all right, we'll put in stuff for the fans of this movie, but we will make this a universal film that people will enjoy. And, you know, it will be a decisive film in terms of, I think, you know, those uber D&D players who really wanted it to explore more of Faerun, and there will be people that will be like, actually, no, that was enough for me. Like, I think it stroked the balance really well.
Well, as I say, there's so much you could do with D&D. I was thinking, would have this been better as a series, like a Netflix series or something?
You always think things should be a Netflix series. You're like,
there's so much you could have done.
But they've done that with Lord of the Rings. That's the thing.
I was going to say it would have been just kind of Game of Thrones like if they did do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I also was thinking it'd be good if it was like what was that, like that Bandersnatch Netflix thing? If they do it, but you could choose.
Your own
that'd be amazing. Because then it's basically D&D, but it's live action as well.
But I think you make a really good point, Ross. That it for people who play, I've played in campaigns where it's sort of grim and dark and the storyline is serious, like for people who know it or don't. Like you have the Curse of Strahd, where you're in this like really dark, oppressive world, and people can die and horrible anything can happen in D&D. But even in those campaigns, like just hysterical shit happens.
Yeah.
And you as people are in just floods of tears from laughing round a table with a beer or through a screen. And it nailed that. Like every time something went wrong for a character, particularly in a fight. Yeah, exactly. It just, in my mind, I just went, oh, they just rolled a crit fail. And like the fact that everyone else had a British accent, my mind went, oh, that's because the DM's British and all the players are American. Like it as a fan of D&D, I'm glad that people who aren't into it are still having a lot of fun with the movie, and I can see why. But as someone who is really into it, like seeing a wizard calling down meteors and being like, oh man, my wizard Theron has cast that spell. And being able to go, oh, they rolled a crit fail. Themba Shord, the chunky dragon from the trailers, actually like having lore and backstory and
the fat dragon.
Yeah, the big fat dragon, which is such an inspired choice.
Yeah.
But yeah, sorry, Ross, I interrupted.
No, I was gonna. So do we do scores now, or are we doing them after the full review?
I think scores now.
Okay, cool. I think there's enough there for you guys to, if you haven't seen the movie, to go off of, and there's not much spoilers there, I don't think. So yeah, go check this movie out. And then come back and listen to our full spoiler cast of it.
Yeah.
So let's go round and see what a little final thought and score out of 5. Oh, sorry,
Okay.
I meant to hand it over. I was just hosting. Drew, yeah, go on, let's go.
Cool. For me, it's a smack bang. I'm giving it 4. I'm giving it 4 chonky dragons out of 5. It's not perfect. There's, for a world that feels so big, that has so much promise, it feels a little bit insular in some ways. Not that that's a problem necessarily, but that it
was like a little note down, basically.
Yeah, kind of. Like I'm not holding this again in terms of the film itself. Structurally, it's really great. Like these guys did game night. They know what they're doing. They're funny people. But I can't put my finger on why it's not just a 5. It's just not quite. But it is a bang up solid 4. It's super fun. I would really recommend everyone watch it, but it's not going to change the world.
Yeah. Andy?
Yeah, agree. I would say go watch it. You're going to have a good laugh. You're not going to come out and say that was a bit of a waste of money. There was definitely some good, funny moments that you'll take away. But yeah, it will probably be, you'll probably forget it in a couple of weeks, but you'll enjoy it while it's in your head. So I'm going to give it 4 Holger, is that? It's not Helga, is it? Holger. 4 Holger potatoes that she loves to eat.
Nice. Yeah, I agree with all of the above statements. It's a fun movie, great casting, great acting. For me, the last act, without spoiling it, was a bit long. And the only thing that I wouldn't give it a 5 is I found the bad guy or the bad person pretty forgettable in terms of the movie. That for me, but like that's not a knock, and I I still enjoyed it, and I'm still going to match you guys as well and say 4. How can I do a spoiler-free funny thing? Fucking hell, I don't know. 5 DMs out of 5. There you go. I can't think of anything.
Love it.
Can't think of anything. So no, sorry, 4 out of 5. Yeah, 4 DMs out of 5. Not. Did I say 5? I can't remember. Anyway, so yeah, that averages out, I guess, at 4.
It does indeed average it out at 4.
There we go. So it's definitely a recommendation from us. So yeah, if you guys want to go and see it, and then head on and go now. We'll wait. And we'll just play D&D while you're going.
Yeah.
And then yeah. So let's get into the meat and vegetables of this adventuring party, and let's cast a spell to start speaking about this movie in full. Here we go. So I'm going to go through the entire synopsis. Stop me at certain points if you want to talk about anything that you found great. I'm just going to start off by saying I saw this in the worst cinema screen I have ever seen. I saw it in an Odeon Screen X film. And that's the one where there's like projections on the sides of the wall.
And that took away from it.
Yeah, because it's like watching a movie in a cockpit, because you're like, and it's only for half the movie as well.
Oh, no way!
There's only certain scenes that have been made for it. So like the big vistas, the big vistas are quite cool. But I kept looking at the projectors, and the projector sides, like the the brightness of those were brighter than the screen in the middle. So then you're just like, that looks a bit weird. So and I paid $17.99 for it as well, and I was like, no.
If it makes you feel better, I paid £17 because M was gonna come with me, but then was too tired and didn't, and I'd bought 2 tickets for for this teeny weeny cinema in Barnstable.
But you had those cool LED, lights and stuff. They were cool. But so yeah, that was.
I had a great experience. My fucking cinema was great.
My mate was like, "Should we go see it in 4DX?" I was like, "Absolutely not. I do not want a ride. I don't want to ride when I'm watching a movie." So that was my only gripe about that. But anyway, let's get into it. Let's start this adventure off. So, prior to being imprisoned, Bard Edgin Darvis spent years as a member of the Harpers, and that's our first D&D reference. Harpers are a gang or a organization in D&D. I remember playing them in the Cult of the Dragon. In that, which was cool. So that was the first cool thing. I was like, oh yeah, the Harpers, that's cool.
See, I didn't even know that. So,
man. Yeah, like saying the Harpers faction as well, like literally calling it a faction. And the framing of him telling his backstory as well, of like they're at their parole hearing, is just fucking jokes. It's so good.
That Jonathan kind of joke is still really good.
Jonathan.
Yeah,
I love the names as well. All of the names are so like they're D&D. So D&D. Like someone, everyone's got their name, like Forge Fitzwilliam, and then the sorcerer is just called Simon because he couldn't think. He just went, oh, he's Simon.
yeah. Who's he waiting for as well that he wants to speak to?
Jonathan.
That's it.
Jonathan the
Aarakocra. And he's like, I just want to know, is Jonathan coming? Because and it's those breaks of that backstory there.
Yeah, he has a plan. He's gonna use Jonathan somehow to get out, but we the audience don't know yet. So it's just story.
They keep saying he's going to be he's going to be sympathetic to the story, but he says he's an Aarakocra, and so I was like, oh, what? So why is a bird person going to be so? When's this story going to get to something that a bird person's going to be so moved by? And then like, the bit where they're like, stop, get back to your statement. And they're like, get back to it, stop stalling. And so he skips back to like 5 minutes ago. And then they're like, you went back too far.
Also, another thing that starts off as well is there is a lot of creature effects, and not CGI. Like that Dragonborn is
really there.
They look really good.
And the Aarakocra, I wanted to shout this out. John Francis Daly, one of the directors, at John F. Daly on Twitter, has just been tweeting out he's put out a bunch of tweets of all of the behind the scenes of how they did a bunch of this stuff, and it's wicked.
Yeah, that's sick.
Like looking at all the bit where Sophia Lillis goes through the portal into the it from later in the movie goes through the portal
Oh,
into the
awesome bit.
treasure truck.
Yeah.
That they built the treasure truck with a door with a wall that opens and closes like a door, so they could get the wide shot and they have the wall open. Then they just walk the camera inside and close the door behind the camera up,
Amazing.
and then he's in there with it. Like
That's great.
The practical effects in this are really great.
It's a
Yeah, it's what-
like it's quite a good like because again it's very D&D to have that mixture of like actual serious sadness along mixed with like humor because you know
Yeah.
you've obviously got his wife being killed and like in that story and then a mixture of obviously the breaks and when he does the humor as well, which is really cool.
Yeah, and the fact that everyone's D&D character has a tragic backstory. Everyone's always has a tragic backstory.
Yeah.
And that it's, and again, for someone, this will be a theme of this, I'm sure, but as someone who doesn't play, that would just be like, oh, okay, that makes sense because it's kind of, it is a trope in fiction that people have tragic backstories and that's why they end up in these lives. But yeah, that blend of just bonkers stuff happening around it, it's fab.
Yeah, and this is the bit where he explains how he where he was trying to get that stone. Obviously, then you meet the rest of the party, don't you? Like in the backstory, obviously you got Hugh Grant. He's got a little bit of long hair and stuff.
Yeah.
And she does that spell. I think it's a time slowing spell, time stop. Which is really cool. Like shot really well as well. Like that whole thing, and he just watches them go off, and then they're obviously captured. And then eventually, obviously, the bird person comes in, and and then you think that it's going to be some like they're like friends. No, he just pushes them out of a window and uses them, and then as he's falling, they say, "Oh, we were gonna pardon." Yeah, which is good. And then
aren't they later wanted because they escaped?
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's quite
so
funny.
good.
So they're wandering around. They go to where do they go after that? They go somewhere, but I can't remember where.
Well, so they travel. We in the backstory we found out that Chris Pine has a daughter, Kira, and his wife died when she was like 2 months old, or like still very, very, very little. And so when they got captured, he asked Hugh Grant to look after his daughter. So they go back to the house and they're not there. And then they happen to find a poster that just has Hugh Grant's face on it. And they're like, he's the Lord of Neverwinter now. And again, any of these times where I was like, oh, that's a bit convenient. The voice in my head just went, that's how a DM would do it, though. That's how it works in D&D. I would love to know if they played any sessions to come up with ideas for how things happen in this movie. I'm sure they didn't, but like the idea of playing a campaign of D&D and then transcribing that into an actual story has crossed my mind so many times.
Yeah.
And Critical Role have done it now. But so then they end up having to travel to Neverwinter to meet Forge.
Yeah, and then they find out that Forge has been taking care of Kira, which is Chris Pine's daughter, and has convinced her that Edgin's greed and selfishness led to his arrest, claiming that the tablet that they tried to get with the Tablet of Resurrection wasn't actually the Tablet of Resurrection, it was a Tablet of Enrichment as well. So Sophina is revealed to be a Red Wizard of Thay, another D&D reference, the bad wizards of Thay, which is again really cool to bring in that lore of like Thay and how mental that like region is as well. Which is cool. And then she and Forge deliberately orchestrate their capture. Sophina attempts to have Edgin and Holger executed. but they escape with a really cool fight scene.
Yeah.
Holger does the fight scenes in this are really good. Like,
they're great.
yeah,
Really.
like, and again, Chris Pine, really great character work where he's just trying to get free by cutting his binds, not really doing anything.
On like the steps or something at one point, wasn't
Yeah.
it? Like, yeah, it was
Well,
quite funny.
and the fact that they cut back to him at one point, and he's trying to cut his ropes on a sword, but is still failing to do it,
Yeah.
and that made me laugh so much.
That's quite fun.
So they escape and they get out of Neverwinter.
How good was the soundtrack as well? The soundtrack was really good. That reminded me
Yeah,
of like
really good.
what actually would like. I remember sometimes when you've DM'd Drew and stuff, and you've had a soundtrack when we are in a fight.
Yeah,
I was like, oh, this is what I can imagine as well. It's not too heavy, but it's still like a bit suspenseful and stuff. That's really good.
So they leave like Neverwinter defeated. They're like, oh no. But then they decide to rob Forge's vault and bring Kira home with them during the upcoming High Sun Games at the stadium, needing the tablet to prove their reasons for committing the original crime. So they basically use this idea to go into the vault and steal the stone, and also get Chris Pine's daughter back. It's very simple. Just we've got a heist movie.
Yeah.
It turns into a heist movie. Yeah. Is the High Sun Games in the actual? Is it in? There must be a lore about it in Neverwinter, in D&D mythology. I assume so.
If you put in High Sun Games Neverwinter. Oh yeah, it is. It is a thing, apparently.
That's cool. I thought it might. The gladiatorial games have previously been banned, but Forge. Oh, also shout out to Hugh Grant's performance in this. He's got this real knack of like using this. His character from The Gentleman. Like he's now like incorporated that in every character that he now does. I like the bit with the tea where he meets Chris Pine and like he's like, oh, it's bloody scorching.
So random.
Scorching hot.
And then she goes, will you mind? And then she dips her finger in and he's like, no, I didn't think you were going to put your... I'll have it later. That's quite funny.
The line later where he's got Edgin captured and he's like, oh, I don't want to see you die. And so that's why I'm going to leave the room. Forge reinstates the games so that he promises like tourists and money to Neverwinter. Edgin and Holger track down Simon, who was part of their gang before, to help. And in that scene, he's swindling some of these people that he's basically trying to show them magic. He makes the smell of fresh cut grass one of the spells that he does, but actually he's you're stealing all their stuff from their pockets. Then a fight ensues when they find out that he's been stealing their stuff, and then they escape. And then he does these. I can't remember what the spell's called, but it's anti-gravity, basically, isn't it? Yeah,
like,
gravity flip or something.
Yeah, which is really cool, actually. Like it looks really cool.
Yeah.
They meet up with Simon. They say, "Hey, how you doing?" And then he suggests that they need to recruit Doric, a tiefling druid, who once rejected him romantically.
Who is, of course, Sophia Lillis from not Stranger Things, from It.
Yeah. Which is cool casting.
Yeah, and they've given her she's a tiefling, so she's part demon, so she has a tail, so that's in there for all the furries she's got horns and a tail. So that's there for them. If the
So-
Dragonborn and the Tabaxi aren't doing it for
Yeah.
him already.
Yeah. Is that the bit where we see the Tabaxi as well? They're giving like escaping from the fish.
Not quite yet, but that bit's great as
Yeah,
well.
yeah. Sorry. Anyway, so they meet up with they meet up with Doric, and they get her to infiltrate the castle again, the Forge's castle. But then the bad lady, what is her name? Fuck me, I'm
So-
bad at this.
I just remembered it as Sophia.
Yeah.
Sophina. So Sophina senses someone using magic, and she's using animal shape-shifting and recognizes that she is a fly, which is quite creepy. Like, she just points at the ceiling, and
Yeah,
goes,
yells, yeah,
and screams. It's
yeah,
really
I was just like, jeez. Yeah, so she recognizes a fly, and there's an amazing escape where she escapes as different animals. I mean, her spell slots.
Was it all one shot?
Yeah.
I felt like it was a one shot.
Yeah.
She would have used all of her spell slots up. I mean, there was no way that she had enough spells to change into that many animals.
Yeah.
I was because she changed in. She was the fly, and then a rat, and then something else, and then a deer, wasn't she? And all I could think was just
fly,
eagle.
rat, eagle. No, she becomes
an eagle.
as well.
Like why don't she fly away or become an ant?
They were shooting arrows at her.
Become an ant. Yeah, man.
Yeah, but an ant's too slow, and then
No,
Sophina will
underneath
catch
the
up
concrete
and cast detect magic again, and be like, "She's down there," and just blow up the room. She's dead.
So Doric learns that in this vault, it is being protected by a Mordenkainen's seal, or like a really powerful spell from Mordenkainen. Drew, do you know who Mordenkainen is?
I know that I've been involved in a campaign when Mordenkainen has come up. I actually can't remember exactly, but
I think isn't he just a powerful? I know there's loads of books on him and stuff. I think he's just a powerful wizard or somebody along. Anyway, yeah, D&D folklore. Yeah, great. So they learn about that. It's a really powerful. It's a really powerful spell that they would have to use, but Simon doesn't think that he could dispel it, and he lacks the power. So Simon proposes the MacGuffin of the movie, that they go get this magic relic, the Helm of Disjunction, that could disable the lock on the door. So they travel to an old graveyard, which is really good. It's a really funny scene. So they travel to the graveyard, in which they try to learn about this helm because it was in an old battle. It was used in an old battle. So they go to the old battle where all the graves are, and they all ask Holger's ancestors where to find it. Simon
has a
He's
spell
got a magic,
that allows you to speak to a corpse, and you can ask 5 questions, and then they die again, and they can never be revived again.
Yeah, and
I mean, that Sophia Lillis goes, "Why is it 5? That seems arbitrary."
Yeah.
It's just so good.
Yeah,
it's so good.
Because I think that is a thing in D&D as well, that you can only ask 5 questions.
Yeah, it is.
And so that's why it's good, because
that's amazing.
It is
good.
arbitrary about why is it 5? No one knows. So Simon resurrects the dead with a talisman long enough for them to answer 5 questions. The corpses.
Well, they do the first classic joke where they ask all the wrong 5 questions, and they ask 1 or 2, and then
they ask him 1 question, but then asking each other questions, the corpse responds to all of them and then just dies. And it's the pace, the comedy pacing of it is so good. It's so freaking good.
Classic, but they do it
What's
well.
What's your favorite color? Red. Yeah, and then they reveal that they gave the helm through flashbacks of the battle, that they gave the helm to
Well, yeah,
they
that's-
have to question so many corpses.
Yeah, there's
And-
also a point. It's funny how when they tell the story, they literally tell the story, and we see the story right up until their death, which I think is quite
Yeah.
funny. Like they're telling, and then the head gets cut off, and you like the story almost just shuts
Yeah.
down.
Or the
And
guy
then they're
that
like,
just
"Well, I
gets
can't
out of the
remember anything
bar.
else."
Yeah, the guy that
guy that
slipped
just
and
gets-
hit his head on the bar.
Yeah,
And, Like,
Yeah.
and again, it's
Like,
just
where were you
it's
in the
so
battle?
D&D.
yeah. But they have to ask you 5 questions before you come out. That's where they're like,
Yeah.
"Well, what's your favorite color?"
Wait,
And he's like, "Ooh, I don't know."
Wait, where are you going? Are you just going to leave me like this?
Did you guys
okay.
stay for the mid-credits scene?
Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
I didn't
Great.
actually.
It's just a callback to the final one that they don't ask all 5 questions to, and he's still
Yeah.
just sat there like, "Hello,
Yeah.
is anyone there?"
So they learn that they gave the helm to Zenk Yandar, a paladin who fled his country of Thay when the Red Wizards turned his people into an undead army, which was again
That
quite
was pretty
scary.
horrifying.
Yeah, when he's running away as a kid and then he just looks at the red mist.
Yeah.
Mm.
So they leave one corpse still alive, not having asked it the full 5 questions.
Poor guy.
There was, I don't. Hold on. Is there? Yeah. Don't worry. Okay.
Okay. All right, we won't.
We're back. We're back.
Yes. Sorry. I was just looking back. I was looking at forward and seeing if it mentioned something that I'm going to talk about in a sec. Anyway,
Okay.
Zenk. Is it Zenk? Zenk?
Zenk.
Zenk, after forcing Edgin to swear to distribute any. They meet up with Zenk eventually. They find him. He is the typical. He is a paladin, right?
Yeah, he's lawful good.
Yeah.
He has no sense of humor.
Yeah.
It's so perfect.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
is
His expression
absolute-
changes at all, actually, does it?
Yeah.
No, and like there's the little bit where they're walking through caves in a bit, and Chris Pine's complaining about him, and he's like, "I can hear you." Then Chris Pine goes, "How did he hear that?" Then he goes, "I can still hear you." And Chris Pine goes, "I hate you." And you just see him smile a bit, and it's nice
Yeah.
that they humanize him a little bit. But again, I've played characters like this where round the table you're still having fun, but then when you're playing the character, you're like, "Oh man, I'm lawful good.
Yeah.
I've just got to follow the rules and be good all the
Yeah.
time."
It's
But
always
it's
bad to be
hysterical.
chaotic, neutral, or
Yeah.
chaotic. Yeah.
At least chaotic
He,
good.
was-
Yeah.
he was
Go
a good. What's his name? Bridgerton guy, wasn't it?
Reggie John Page.
That was it. Yeah. Just he was really good up against Pine. They had a really good back and forth, and
Yeah.
for 2 people, I guess that's never worked together as well. It's just like I thought they had a really good chemistry. And when I guess when he leaves, we'll talk about the whole rock thing because that was hilarious. That for me maybe was the biggest laugh in the movie. But
Yeah.
he's in it for a bit.
So Zenk, after he agrees to help them, but he forces Edgin to swear to distribute any of the gained booty from the vault to the people, and then guides the group through the Underdark to retrieve the helm.
He makes him swear. Doesn't he swear on like the Harper Bible or something?
Yes.
Or, like,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
because
And
he
then
knows he's a Harper, or he was a Harper or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they use a teleportation staff to get to,
Which is just Portal. It looks exactly like Portal, the game, which is amazing.
And this is obtained by Holger's halfling ex-husband. Shout out to Bradley Cooper
In
Yeah.
the best cameo of many, many years.
Yeah.
So great.
And they really encapsulated what halflings look like. They didn't make them look like little children or anything. It's just
A tiny person.
yeah, it's literally a human, but just really small.
Yeah.
It looked like they did the effect the same way they did Lord of the Rings as well.
Yeah.
But the fact that there's the laugh that he's tiny and that he clearly has a type because he used to be with Holger and now he's with another enormous sort of gruff woman. But the fact that actually it's desperately sweet and he plays it completely straight.
Yeah.
And it's this actually really quite affecting story that Holger was banished from her barbarian tribe because she wanted to be with him. but then she was so distraught that she had been banished by her family that she couldn't ever commit to the relationship, and that's what led to it ending. And it's played so straight, and he's just a lovely, sweet man, but he's teeny weeny.
Yeah. And that is a really nice scene as well. Like, you know, she gets the staff, and then they go and they go down and they use the staff.
They use the staff because they get to a typical D&D trap, and Reggie John Page is like, okay, this is a fiendish gnomish trap, and what you must do is for the first half of the bridge, you must step only on odd numbers, and with every fifth step, you must then move laterally. It does not matter which way you move laterally, but you must move laterally once the first and the last are on the bridge, equidistant.
And then you must go to odd. Then you must go to odd numbers.
Yeah. And just that typical overcomplicated thing, and then Justice Smith steps on it. He's like, I didn't realize that this was where the bridge officially started. And then luckily they just realized that the walking stick is a portal gun.
Yeah. So they bamf across, they find the helm, and then some Thayan assassins come down, sent from what's her face, Safina, and they start running away. Well, actually, they kill him, but then they end up basically coming back alive again because they're already dead. And then they run up this hill filled with bones and skulls towards this giant cave. And in the cave, there is Thembashard, a pudgy red dragon, which is actually from D&D as well.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, I just thought it was a fat dragon.
I was reading up around this as well, because I'd heard someone say, like, Thembashard is actually in the lore and he's in the Underdark. But then I was reading the backstory, and it's like he exists in a different city in the Underdark, and his whole backstory is that he's a red dragon used by dark dwarves to power their forges to do their metalworking, and they always have a red dragon. And once the red dragons get too big because they're inherently evil, they kill them and bring in a new one. But it's a different city, and then they have And there was all this speculation of like, oh, why is it a different city? And then in the movie, they have a line where they're like, he's found a new lair. And just all of that is just, it's so good. It's so good.
So they managed, they do the old, there's a platform. It goes up when the fat dragon's on the end of it. And, but yeah, like it's a really good action scene when they're trying to escape. And they escape. They get to a beach. Jean Page says bye because he
just walks off.
He just walks off in a straight line. And he goes, "Oh, he's coming to a rock. What's he gonna do? Is he gonna go around it?
He's gonna move. He's gonna go left.
Walk straight over.
Walk straight over it.
Straight over. That was good. Which again, I thought he was going to be in the whole movie. Like the whole movie.
Exactly.
Yeah,
he's in it for like 20 minutes, and then he leaves.
He comes back at the end for a bit, and then
So then
but again, Andy, it's having never DM'd, you wouldn't know, but sometimes you need to introduce an NPC who's a powerful high-level NPC who comes along for a bit, but then the DM's like, well, they can't stay around forever because that it would make everything else too easy. So he walks off, and they're like, aren't you going to come? And he's just like, this is your quest. They're like the most non-answer, the most D&D non-answer ever, and then just wanders off. And the party's like, well, fuck. Okay.
And then, so then Simon tries to master the helm. So he puts it on. He sees himself, I believe, as an older, but I think
he doesn't know yet. He sees an ancestor. He thinks, doesn't he?
Yeah, they say in the movie that he's because in the lore of D&D, there are different ways that you access magic, and wizards have to traditionally do it through a spell book, although Safina doesn't have a spell book, so points over that. Maybe that's why I took a point off, because she doesn't have a spell book, and they're meant to have a spell book. but sorcerers get it through like their bloodline.
Yeah.
And so he's descended from this great sorcerer. And whether it like this was one bit that and this was another bit that I like. It's fine. But it's very, very standard. Like Edgin spends the whole time basically being like, you have no self-confidence. He's like, yeah, I know that. And he's just like, you've got to believe in yourself. He's trying to be a bard and trying to give bardic inspiration and be like, no, you can do this. And the crux of the whole story is he has to believe in himself.
Yeah.
In order, he was the only one standing in his own way. And they just make that the most literal way possible. And it felt a little bit, it felt a wee bit cheap. It felt like they went, it felt like the party got this item and the DM was like, oh, this is insanely powerful. I can't let them use this magic item until they actually need to use it.
Yeah.
And so they just had to come up with some bullshit. And it's, again, the phrase, if this wasn't called D&D, I would be marking this film down so much for this. But I'm just like, yeah, it's because the DM had to not let them have it for a bit, so it's fine. What I really want from this movie is the Lego movie framework where you pull out and you see the DM and the people actually playing. That's, like, I don't want that, but I also kind of do.
Yeah, I think they could possibly do that with the sequel, but we'll talk about that at the end.
Yes, sorry, I keep interrupting. No, that is the point. I'm not going to apologize.
So he has trouble tuning with this helm. So then, what is his? I'm so bad with these names. Chris Pine. Edgin decides to make another plan of using the portal staff to just portal into the vault. But they kind of like come up with this plan to get some treasure to get into the vault.
Yeah, so in when Doric first infiltrates the castle, she learns, or maybe Hugh Grant tells them when. No, he does. He tells them when they first get there, and he's like, the wealthiest men from Baldur's Gate and Waterdeep are coming with their fortunes to bet on the games, and so they remember that that's happening, and so they're like, but so what if we put the portal on? Well, let's use the portal to get in the vault. And someone's like, I told you, you can only you can't use it if you can't see into the vault. And then they're like, but wait, they're bringing treasure on caravans, and they're trying to stop people taking treasure out of the caravans, but they're not going to be trying to stop people putting something in the caravan.
Yeah. So Edgin hides in the middle of the road.
Yeah, under some leaves.
Under some leaves.
A carpet of leaves,
which is a bit weird, but
the most conspicuous pile of leaves ever.
Clearly, I mean, if they didn't see the pile of leaves, they saw him like putting like sitting back down and then putting the carpet of leaves back over him. They couldn't have missed that. That was so obvious.
Yeah. So they get this frame, this picture frame. They cut out the circle where the canvas is, and they bamf a portal onto the frame, and then they stick it underneath. So Edgin sticks it underneath the caravan, and then the scene that Drew was talking about in the making of, they do this really cool scene where they bamf another portal where they are, and then they smash the underneath of the floorboards of the caravan, get in, and she Doric does that cool shot, obviously, where she flips from the grass hill to inside the caravan. Then they put this thing in. Then it's really interesting way of doing it, because I was like, how the fuck are they going to do this? They use that portal thing really well.
Yeah. That was a great plan, and great, and that was really well done, everything like that. But as soon as they cut out that canvas with obviously a sharp knife, and then they stuck the canvas, they put the portal on, then they stuck the canvas back down with like gum or something, didn't they? And it was just like, you can obviously tell if a canvas has been cut. I mean, come on, like the sides would be like crawling. Like I know it's like obviously logical thinking, but I was like, can you imagine someone just being like, "What the fuck's happened to my picture?"
Rule of cool, yeah. If your players came up with that idea, I'd be like, "Yeah, that is fucking sick."
Exactly. And like
they should have actually, they should have taken the eyes out of the portrait, and then they would have been able to look through.
Speaking of the portrait, I really enjoyed that the guy in the portrait is an actor called Paul Scheer, who is one of the big Hollywood nerds who loves D&D, I thought,
he had a big old smile, it was quite funny.
Spent the whole movie waiting for Vin Diesel and who played Deadshot, the
Smith.
no, not Deadshot then.
Manganiello.
Joe Manganiello. I can't believe that they didn't at least get cameos in this. Like, I know Vin Diesel is...
Or Matt Mercer. I was expecting Matt Mercer to be in it. But yeah, like, really cool, inventive way of doing this, like, little heist. So then they... the portrait gets put into the vault. This is weird though, because then they come up with another. Like they just go into the city anyway. Like, so there's like two plans. There's one. The guys are trying to get. So it ends up they put the painting in the vault, but it falls down on its face, so they can't get into the vault. So she tries to chip away, but then Doric and hold on, I've lost my
Simon and Holger. So Doric stays to try and chip a hole in the stone floor where the portrait's fallen down, so that she can turn into a worm and crawl through.
Yes.
But because time's running out, so Edgin is still going to go and try and find his daughter, and Holger and Simon are going to find the door to just try and use the helm anyway.
Yeah.
Even though Simon hasn't been able to use it.
Yes. So Simon and Holger infiltrate the magically sealed door, but find the room behind it empty except for a magical trap. The whole group is captured and forced to participate in the games that are going on. But they manage to escape. So yeah, this whole scene is really cool. Like a really cool. I don't know what creature it is that they use as the panther's
Displacer Beast.
So that's another intro, and they've got a trapped chest as well, which is cool, that tries to eat them. And they've got the cube.
Gelatinous cube.
Which slowly dissolves them. And they use the gelatinous cube to get out, and it falls back down, and you see the skull of like the burning corpse of the person that got put in it before.
But the maze is awesome as well when it falls and stuff. So what's that panther called?
Displacer Beast.
Like obviously, so you got to get to the end of the maze before the maze walls collapse, and then the beast can easily get you. Like, that's a cool. I don't know. That must have been done in other things. I can't remember. But
there was a reference that I forgot to mention. I think the scream when she detects magic and finds Doric as a fly and does that scream. That felt like, oh my god. Okay, well, forget that. I think that was a reference to. It's not the Frighteners, the pod people. Anyway, but when they're running away from Thembeshord the dragon, and Doric, they leap and they grab onto a thing and it collapses, and she's hanging by her fingertips, and Thembeshord has fallen down and then gets up and jumps up and snaps at her foot. Was the raptor about to bite his leg from Jurassic Park? And cool. That has to have been intentional.
So they escape the games, and then
reminded me of
the boat full of treasure that actually. So Forge is stealing the treasure.
Doric discovers that Forge has loaded the treasure onto the boat that's been brought to him, and is preparing to flee the city. With
Be the city.
Yeah. So the group steals the boat for themselves and rescues Kira from Forge, who threatened Kira's life. As they escape, the group realizes that Safina organized the games to draw a massive crowd and turn them into an undead army, using the same curse that destroyed Faye. The group returns and transports Forge's stolen riches out of the boat and on top of a hot air balloon with the mouth as the portal, and then as the riches get spread across the city, and then people start running out of the games instead of being there. So then Safina's like, "What the
Nice
fuck's
little-
going on?" Yeah,
Just a nice little touch is coming out of his mouth. It's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
like-
So the group, outraged at her defeat, Safina then starts to attack the group, and then we get the last sort of fight scene, which is really good.
Yeah, the final big fight was really great, and pardon me again, as a D&D person, it's not apparate, but she's using a teleportation spell.
Yeah,
And then she casts, it must be animate object on the dragon statue. And this is where it gets super nerdy. Animate objects is a concentration spell, so she can't cast any other spells. And then if she takes damage, it breaks the concentration, and so she keeps dodging the attacks.
Yeah.
But then her concentration gets broken by Doric, which stops the dragon. And I was nerding out so hard that they really did use D&D format and rules. The rules of the fight were followed. And
Mage Hand as well.
no,
that was
Big B's magic hand, and they have a Big B's magic hand thumb war. It's good.
Yeah, that's such a. I didn't expect that for a third act big fight. Like the directors and stuff going like, how can we make this different? Basically, two hands grappling each other, holding hands.
But it's an iconic spell, and again, the fact that Simon gets launched through the air and uses Big B's magic hand to catch him before he hits the ground.
Yeah,
and the fact that, again, my wizard Theron, who I started playing in 2016 and still occasionally get to play going on now, has used Bigby's magic hand to fly around on and cast spells off. I was squealing. I was so happy.
Well, as well, you just said something about being the fights were authentic to like real D&D or something, didn't you? And I disagree.
To a degree.
Disagree highly then, because everyone attacked at the same time. No one like kind of did an attack and then waited for everyone else to do their attack and then moved. And
everyone does attack in D&D.
Yeah, in the fiction of D&D, everyone
that's
is
what
doing it all
I
at
was
the
really
same
wanting
time.
to somehow, if they could just do something where like Chris Pine attacks and then stays, and then like Justice Smith attacks and then stays where he is or something. Like
I did think the same thing. Like when there's both of Holger's big solo fights against gangs of guards. I was like, oh well, but in real D&D, like she's lost this fight because there's 12 of them who would all have a turn before she does. They clearly couldn't be that beholden to it. But I am with you there, Andy.
So then Safina does her Uber spell, which is the time stop. However, it fails when Simon nullifies it, allowing Kira to use an invisibility pendant Edgin and Holger gave her as a child to place in an anti-magic bracelet on Safina.
Then as well, that's the only thing as well. I like the time stop thing. I like they did the time stop in the beginning and it worked, and they do the time stop this time. And so Safina walks up to Chris Pine and it's like, I got you. I'm gonna fucking beat you. And then he like literally just like kind of blinks and then looks and goes, no, we got you. It's because Justice Smith
your
now
breath really stinks.
Yeah, but like, I didn't think obviously too logical, whatever they're at. But I was like, wouldn't a great like Red Witch know the spell wouldn't work, or that they're not actually frozen? Wouldn't have she kind of spidey sensed something? And then
maybe.
That's too logical, maybe. But yeah, it was good. Yeah. But I was just at the end, I was a bit like, she would have noticed.
She turns pretty horrifying, like when her face starts to just Yeah, for like, and she goes all fucking horrible.
Litchy.
Yeah. And then Safina's defeated, and then Doric turns into an owlbear and absolutely mauls her to death. And
Hulk
then
style.
Yeah,
and
she
then
does a
some-
Hulk.
It's very Hulk-like. The games are as well remind me of Thor Ragnarok as well. I was
Yeah.
a bit like, oh sweet, I thought it was gonna be Chris Pine versus the Hulk.
And then she's just crushed to death by falling debris as well.
Yeah.
Just as a it adds
Someone rolled a
insult to
20.
injury.
Well,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it because I was very much like, oh, are they? That's ambiguous. Like she might not be dead, and, and then they just drop a load of masonry on her.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay, no, she's dead now.
Yeah. Holger, though, however, is badly and fatally injured in battle. And they also explained that if you're stabbed by a Thayan dagger, you cannot be resurrected because literally everyone in D&D, death doesn't matter because
Yeah,
you
as
can
long as you're
literally-
rich enough.
Yeah. As long as you're rich enough, you can afford to buy a resurrection stone to just come back alive again. But unfortunately, she can't because she's been stabbed by a Thayan dagger. So Edgin and Kira used the tablet of resurrection that they got from the
Vault.
vault. I can't think of that word for some reason. Keeps escaping my head. They use the tablet from the vault. They look at each other. They say, "Do you want me to use this?" And she's like, "Yeah."
Yeah.
And so they use it to bring.
They don't bring the mum back because earlier there's a flashback where the mum basically, or Chris Pine's wife says, you got to let me go, isn't it?
Well, yeah. So there's a dragonfly, which is a repeated motif through the film. It shows up when he's thinking about his wife, and it turns out there was one in their house when they were 15 years younger.
I mean,
Yeah,
come of a dragonfly. Like, what the hell?
he's creeped out by it.
Make it a mythical fly that looks a bit creepy. That'd be fine. But it was literally a dragonfly. I was like, who's scared of it?
That's part of the reason why it's so like this bard who like
maybe
he tends to be like this. He
but he's
tends
scared.
to be but he's scared of this dragonfly. Yeah, so he sees the dragonfly again flying around, and then he kind of accepts that he needs to let her go and let her be, and he needs to move on.
It was the only. I don't know if I'm sold on that as well. Maybe if I watch it again, I don't know. It just seemed like sold on why he just switched, or
because in that moment. So I really liked it.
He wants to bring his wife back for him, not for.
His daughter never knew her mum, and he spent the whole film being like,
and I know,
I want her back, and if you got to know her, she's amazing. And then he has that flashback, and for me, it was actually really effective. Where through it cut to bits that were shown in the film in flashbacks and in situ, and at the time I didn't process it, and then it puts them all together, and it's like, oh wait, no, she does have a mum, and. One thing that they don't do, where they were so in your face with it with Simon, and no one says, "Oh, you already had a mum." Like no one has to say that. They do at least leave that unsaid.
She doesn't say that to Holger or Olga or whatever her name is.
Yeah,
You're always the mum to me. No, I get that. That's all fine. I really like that. I think what I was telling more of was the way she was just telling Pine to let go. I don't know if I don't know if I can explain myself, but I don't know if like, I just didn't buy the whole.
You wanted more
dragon
of a
floor. Yeah, it was. I guess it's the same thing I was talking about in the Spider-Man, the Spider-Verse episode that's coming out, where the dad just kind of gives a 2-line inspirational speech. But I was wondering maybe like a 4-line or something. Like, I don't know. It's just the whole the whole just like get over me. I just didn't buy that whole thing. But I got like the whole was the mum to her and everything like that, and that was really sweet. But yeah, it was just like okay.
Yeah, and then Holger gets resurrected. she now is like, oh, why did you do that? And she's like, because you're our family, blah blah blah. And they're all like,
You're the
oh,
mum to me.
yeah. And then they're all like, oh, cool. And then everyone lives happily ever after. And then we get a scene where the old Lord of Neverwinter declares them heroes of the realm, and Forge is sent to Edgin and Holger's old prison, and he tries to escape. I think in the
Same
is there
way.
two credit scenes, or is that in?
That's
I
in
can't
the
remember.
movie. Yeah, that's just before
Oh,
the
yeah,
credits.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the closing framing.
He tries to escape the same way that Holger and Edgin did, but they realize that they've bricked up the window.
Which makes me think this wasn't like a one-time occurrence. Like a lot of people have
Yeah.
used that same
Yeah.
method to escape, and they're like, "God damn
Yeah.
it! This is the 10th time this month. Come on, let's just brick it up."
And then we get a after credit scene of the dead person asking, "Hello, is anyone around?" And that's the
poor
end of the
guy.
movie.
Yeah.
I've missed out quite a lot of it, but it's because Wikipedia doesn't do an in-depth plot, and it moves, and there's not much synopsis on Wikipedia to like go through. So I'm trying to remember because I saw it on Friday. So that's it. That's the movie. Now, in those bits, I've totally forgot to say, there's some really good creature effects. Like there's some a bit where they have to rescue a tabaxi child from a fish's mouth, and that's all again
Fully practical.
fully practical effects, which is really cool. I really like. Go on, Drew.
And speaking of things that don't really come up in a synopsis, I think another great strength, as well as the practical effects, and I hope we go back to it, is just the character, or the interplay between the characters and the banter between the characters. Just that the moment to moment dialogue is so charming and fun and still believable, but it's really, really funny. It's so funny.
Is there anything else you guys want to talk about before we move on, like that I've missed or that you wanted to bring up in terms of the whole movie? Or
the thing is, sorry to bring a downer on it. I was going to say, I only saw it yesterday, and it talking about it not going to be like the film of the year. You just reading out half of that, I completely kind of forgot about until it brought up.
Really?
Until you brought it up, and then I had some memories and stuff like that. But I left the cinema going, I'm gonna forget this all by tomorrow. Nothing that it was just such.
Why did you give it 4?
Because it was really good. It's still great, but like it's obviously not a 5 because it's not that memorable. So, but like, it's when we started talking about it, I can remember it. But
yeah, I know what you mean. Like, it is a tough thing for the film to have when there's so much high fantasy out there now, and there's they're up against Lord of the Rings, which is like this epic beast that has set the bar in terms of fantasy movies. And you've got the Lord of the Rings, the Rings of Power, and all those things. So like to do a fantasy movie they're already gonna be at a disadvantage in terms of trying to make it unique. But I think they talking about it and going back over it. I think they did a really good job to try and make it stand out. In terms, they knew they couldn't go high fantasy because it would just it wouldn't work. So they just went, you know what? Let's just have fun. Let's have fun making this movie. Let's have fun with the cast. Let's have fun in the dialogue, and I think they did a really good job.
Yeah, I think they have an opportunity with any continuation of this franchise, which again we'll get to in a couple of minutes. They can, where you've got Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon and Lord of the Rings, I can see them being, maybe not in terms of levels of success, but in terms of tone, you've got them as the DC, and then you've potentially got D&D as the Marvel of
Sure, I can see that. Yeah.
current pop culture high fantasy. Of these are the serious ones that you kind of have to take more seriously, and this is the fun one where you show up to have fun and you don't have to think too deeply about it.
Yeah.
And that it felt very Marvel. The tone felt very
Yeah,
Marvel
sure,
to me,
yeah.
but in a really good way. More comedy, like on the scale of Marvel comedy, it's Ant-Man amounts of comedy. But to be honest, more comedy than an Ant-Man film.
Well, yeah, yeah.
But I really think it worked. Also, shout out to the illusion again, a concentration spell where Simon's casting an illusion of Chris Pine singing a song to distract the guards.
Oh
And
shit! Yeah.
as the illusion starts to break down and like his face like recedes into his chest, and it's like
horrifying.
Everyone in the cinema, the
Yeah.
whole cinema was screaming with laughter last night when I saw that.
See, I that's a great bit, but I completely forgot about it until you brought it up now. He's trying to go upstairs. It was like, it reminded me of that.
That was odd.
Hello. Yeah, that was really weird.
What happened there?
And Andy just, you know, the sound effect when the liquid metal goes down Neo's throat in the first Matrix, and Andy just became that, and everything stopped.
Oh fuck!
It's like,
I've been taken over by Smith. Oh no!
Yeah, that was weird. Anyway, we're back.
So yeah, I think like we talked about most of the movie, like, and I think like they did a really good job, and I think 4 is a deserving amount for this movie. I think like it's not perfect, but then I don't think it needed to be. And I would definitely watch this again.
Yeah.
I'd like to watch it with my partner. That'd be quite good. Like to just like introduce her into that world. I would like. We'll talk about the future and we'll talk about what we would like and if there is going to be a sequel. But I would like them to explore more into the lore a little bit more potentially. So let's talk about any more points that anyone wants to raise before we talk about the future.
No, I think that's
no. I don't.
I'm trying to think of any more really funny jokes that stand out, but
yeah, it's mainly like the banter between them and Chris Pine giving these like offhand comments and stuff, and they're really good. So
well done, movie.
Yeah, well done. So in February of 2022, a spin-off television series was announced to be in development. A part of a multi-pronged approach for television projects. The show is described as the flagship and the cornerstone live-action series of the multiple projects in development. While the series will complement the film side of the franchise, Rawson Marshall Thurber is set to serve as creator, writer, executive producer, and showrunner for the series. In addition to directing the pilot episode, various networks and streaming companies bid on the distribution rights. And in January of 2023, it was announced that Paramount Plus gave the show a straight-to-series order and will consist of 8 episodes, with an Entertainment One and Paramount Pictures serving as production companies. So there you go. There you go, Andy. You've got your wish of it having a D&D Paramount movie. Paramount series.
looking forward to that.
Yeah, in an interview with Polygon in April 2023, on the potential for a film sequel, Daly stated that it was never our intention when we came on board for this film to make a franchise, as they always say. Goldstein commented that they would most likely continue with the characters established in Honor Among Thieves if they return to the D&D world. And he said the audience knows them, and you can jump into the plot more quickly. And obviously, we have great affection, for both the actors and these roles that they play. But we want to introduce some new figures along the way as well. I think there was mention as well of making it stop motion as well, potentially.
No way.
That would be interesting.
But let's talk about you guys. What do you think? Like, so obviously there's not a plan. There is a plan in terms of like to, broaden D&D into obviously Paramount Plus now with a series, an 8-part series, which will hopefully be really cool. What do you think about movie sequels? Do you think that it needs to have a sequel? What would you like to see from the sequel? Let's go with Andy first.
I would definitely like to see a sequel. It's definitely if it starts a movie franchise and goes through like a typical trilogy, then I'd be up for seeing all three based on just this one. I don't even think you need the cast of the original in the sequel. You can class that as a sequel. A completely new cast, completely new story, not completely new location, but same world, but maybe new location. So everything that you learn from the first movie still applies.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll be up for definitely watching it. What the actual like story is, I don't know. Yeah, it'd be good if the writers. I mean, like, no offense to the people that did actually do this. Great movie, really well written and directed. But I was thinking halfway through, I was like, oh, how I don't know how much better, I guess you could say, this would have been if Lord and Miller was behind it. But the story wise, I don't know. Yeah, it'd be good if the writers went into lore and was like, right, what's a great like story that we can break up into say 2 movies, or more. I could say like if you had a different cast each time, then there's no reason to stop at 3. I don't know.
Would you prefer to see from like subsequent sequels to not specifically have an overriding thing, to just have individual adventures, do you think, with different actors and different things?
Yeah, I think maybe an overarching like legend of a bad guy, basically like what Thanos was in phase 1 of Marvel. So
I mean,
maybe we meet him at the end, the big bad. But yeah, no, I think I'd be happy with that rather than Chris Pine come back and have to force his character into another 2 times.
Do you think that making Zaztan the sort of overarching villain of the like franchise would be good? Because that's who obviously the overarching villain of this movie was. Sofina was working for Zaztan to purge Faerun of, because obviously Zaztan has purged Thay of like, and made everyone undead in Thay, or a section of Thay, and his like overarching thing is to destroy make all of Faerun undead. Do you think that could be potentially like the overarching thing, and then have different stories and how this Thay thing affects it? Do you think?
Yeah, I think it'd be basically what I'll be looking for, rather than say bringing Pine back for 2 more reasons or anything like that. Or if we take one character, what was the it girl called? The horn girl, Doric or something? Derek.
Derek.
If we followed her, if she was like now the lead, and then in the third one we followed someone in I think that'd be great. And an overarching, again, we don't really need to maybe see or experience this big legend, but to know it's out there and it's real, that'd be awesome, I think. Yeah.
Drew, what about you?
For me, with the Red Wizards showing up, and again, this is a deep cut. Well, it's not actually that deep of a cut if you're into D&D, but if you're not, you will have no idea. The Red Wizards of Thay are major players in a 2-campaign story arc, which is when they're put together, called the Tyranny of Dragons.
Yeah.
And that's the first campaign. That's the campaign that Theron, my wizard, my first ever D&D character, continues to exist in. Or, well, we finished Tyranny of Dragons and then they went to hell and they're trying to escape from hell, and that's a whole other thing that I'm not going to go into. They've got these really massive. They've got these stories planned out. The Tyranny of Dragons is a fantastic, fantastic story, and you get to play through it. You've set up the Red Wizards of Thay. Just do Tyranny of Dragons. The next two movies are The Cult of the Dragon and The Rise of Tiamat.
Yeah.
See, I don't know
down.
anything about that, but dragons sound cool, so
Yeah,
I'm definitely into that.
So I don't want to spoil it. I shan't say any more than that, because if you're curious, if you already play and you've not done Tyranny of Dragons, it's a wicked campaign. And if you've never played D&D, you might, if you come to join a group, you might play through it. I don't want to spoil it, but I'm kind of, I think they should bring back the characters, because the great they've named them protectors, heroes of the city, and if something odd, and they say at the end they're all going to stay together as a party, and so if some bad stuff starts going down in Faerun, who are you going to call?
But I also think you've got a link there with that story, because I've played through it. You've got a link there with
Red
him,
Wizards.
and also
and the Harpers.
The Harpers, him being used to be part of the Harpers, and then you can introduce NPCs that have been part of the Harpers and introduce it that way, which would be really a cool thing. And then you've literally got like enough for probably 3 movies or 2 movies at least to set that up.
So yeah, for me, my point is that they should just adapt the campaigns and maybe make some changes so that it doesn't spoil, because they do obviously want people to play through them, but that's what I think they should do.
But you say that, but you know, Last of Us Part 1 has oversold, and people have, and that's exactly like the game, but people want to play the game because they're like, oh, actually, and then it it sells more of their products. I think you're onto that. I think that I didn't think of that, actually. I was like, in terms of what I think I would want, either they have to have an adventure, like overarching thing with Zaz-Tam, and they have to fight him again, or they have to go to Thay or do something in terms of that, and he becomes the overall bad guy, or you go completely opposite way, and then you have the second movie open with you're sitting around a table with the DMs, and it pulls out, and they're all like, "Oh my god, that was amazing! I can't believe that you just played that." And it's Chris. It's not Chris Pine, but it's like a kid playing Chris Pine.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, they could go that way, and then I think the Jumanji way of doing it has really worked, and like they get sucked into the game. But obviously, you've seen that before in Jumanji. I don't know how they would do it, but I would like to see more of the real world and also the DMing world.
Yeah,
I know that it wouldn't work in terms of like fantasy, because you're being pulled out of it and it's not real then. So, and I get that, like, that may not work. If they could make it work and it could like be cool, I think that would be a really cool way of doing it. Like, have it, them sitting around a table, and like playing the game.
I could see that work. I could see that working as a TV show.
Somehow,
having it be a teen high school drama where you follow the lives of these kids in real life, and they have their comedy drama that happens there. But then there's also a parallel storyline or something that happens within D&D. That would be really fun.
Yeah.
Really difficult. I don't know how the you do that.
Yeah, I don't know if you could bring it into the movie. Well, like with a TV show, it'd be easy. You'd just have the main character go through something in real life, or go through something in the game that he's going through in real life or something, and then has to overcome it at the end.
I think
way of doing it, but I wouldn't mind. But
I think I would prefer, like Drew, to have the same cast, maybe with a couple more.
It's just like this universe with D&D, you can literally have anything. And now, so far, we've got a team with like 3 humans.
No,
And
I
it's
know,
just a
but then
bit
you
like-
introduce. Yeah, but that's not
Well,
to
no,
say
Si-
that
you
they
can-
wouldn't
you can
introduce.
Simon's a half elf. Technically, Simon's not.
Yeah,
they all look human basically. I was looking for like at one point I was like a dragonborn or something. I was like, oh, I want one of those on the fucking team the
I
whole
think-
time. But
I think in the sequel, I would like more people added to the party. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
I can imagine that would happen.
different
Yeah, whether they
classes.
stay or leave, that's fine with me. But yeah, because like I say, we've got to know these characters and we like them. But in terms of D&D, there's just so many different fucking like designs and stuff that we haven't even seen.
I would love to see a rogue join the party and them have a conflict between them and Chris Pine. Like, you know, that sort of vibe of, you know, Thor and Star-Lord.
Well, Chris Pratt.
That's-
Yeah, I was just thinking.
But yeah, like that sort of that battling against being the face of the party. I would
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
there to be a little bit more internal, like fighting, but like bickering and stuff, like they have done in the first one. But like expand on that, and then obviously I reckon, you know, have one of the characters die. I think it'd
Yeah.
be interesting
Yeah.
because you need them to go through something that, you know, that pulls them apart. Because that's what the glory of like fucking D&D is. You're like, you know, I do a podcast in which we play D&D or
Yeah, you do.
offshoot of D&D. It's Pathfinder, but the thing of like a character dying in it is such an emotional moment. But in a fight, you seeing that and you think that, oh fuck, we're gonna die. We're all gonna die. This person's just died. And now they're our tank and they've just died. But it pulls you together closer as a group to then fight the fucking bad guy and go, you know what? No, we're not going to fucking die. I'd like to see that in the sequel. I think that would be pretty cool.
Agreed.
Yeah, it'd be harder to, you pointed out already, Ross, but yeah, if you were going to like cut back to people playing the game, I guess you could try and make it a funny way if you have this big emotional death scene. And then even when you pull back out to the actual people playing the game, you either lose that emotion completely, or you use that and have like an over the top, someone like eating crisps or something over the top, and then you pull back out and you're like, dude, I'm trying to die here, you know, and you're like, sorry.
I think that Drew actually made me think, actually, it's probably better as a TV show if they were going to do that style.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, like in a sequel, I'd like to see more cities explored. Like, you know, you've got the famous ones like Baldur's Gate. You've got what other ones? Bloody hell.
Waterdeep.
Yeah, Waterdeep. That's it. Thank you, Drew. Yeah, like I'd like to see more of Faerun and more different, like more classes and maybe more races as well. Would be really sick to see. And yeah, like
more like leveling up style battles where they're like, we just have to get from point A to point B, and we have 3 battles with 3 different creatures that this, you know, and we learn things maybe about ourselves, but we all level up or something.
Some more random encounters.
Yeah, and then maybe after the third one, someone just goes, "Oh my god, I just suddenly know this water spell. What the hell?"
Yeah.
I was hoping I was hoping there would be some sort of joke about leveling up that did never come.
I was waiting for like the. Do you remember how Pokemon used to evolve in the game? They used to like glow, and so I was like, "Oh."
So yeah, I think we've come up with some good ideas there. So let us know pictures.
Get in touch, Hasbro.
Yeah, let us know pitch pals. What sequel you would like to see from this movie? Would you like to see Andy's completely new cast fighting a big bad, but not it like being an overarching thing? Would you like to see Drew's sequel with the same cast, but using an adventure module from the actual books that they've created? Or would you like to see a cut of both them playing the game and also being in the game as well? Let us know on Twitter. Let us know on Facebook. On comment on what our Spoilercast. Let us know what you think. I think we have come to the end of this adventure, my friends.
Aww.
But we all made it. We all survived.
We all survived.
We all rolled 20s.
You know what they should do with this movie for the future? They should turn it into a game. That's what they should.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. Ha, I'm so funny.
So, I think it's time to go to an inn, sit in front of a fire.
We need a long rest.
We need a long rest. We need to get our spells back to come back better than ever for our next spoilercast, whatever that may be. Who knows? So let us know if you enjoyed it. If you would love to be a pitch pal, then head on down to our Patreon. You can become a pitch pal in the future, maybe. Oh wait, we don't have it anymore, and this is going to be released straight away.
Wait, what?
No, we still got it.
Yeah, we still got it. We just paused payments for a month.
Shit,
while
now
we
you're
were
gonna
off.
have to fucking cut this out.
No, I'm not.
Okay, well, look,
Wait,
if
so
you
if-
want to come
if
down
people-
to our,
If that's right, then if people go to Patreon and sign up now, do they technically is it free because payments paused?
No,
Oh, okay.
that is not correct.
I was going to say,
So
let's
please-
change that right now then.
shout about a sequel pitch to your friends, talk
In their
to
faces.
everyone, message us, let us know how you feel, join our Patreon, and we will be seeing you very, very soon for our relaunch of sequel pitch. And boy, oh boy, it's going to be a special episode. We're recording it tomorrow, and oh boy, it's going to be great. So it's goodbye from Andy Henry.
So long, fine travelers.
Goodbye from Drew.
Huzzah!
And it's goodbye from me. Roll initiative, baby.
Yeah!